Hey everyone. So can you store everything? Does it pay to store everything? You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel here on Happy Tuesday on Techstrong, gang. As usual, we've got a good show, some interesting topics to talk about with some interesting people to talk about them with. Let me introduce you to our interesting people today. First of all, from, I guess he's home in Hudson, Ohio. Stephen, I know you're moving. Are you still going to be in Hudson?
Yeah, I'm moving about 0.8 of a mile. That's I don't know, some other number for people in other countries.
You know, there used to be a thing that a lot of people are born, lived, and die all within their own little town or area there.
That ain't me.
No? Okay. Anyway.
I was born in Connecticut. What can you say?
You're a Connecticut Yankee. Anyway, he is the CEO of Tech Field Day, Futurum Company, and bona fide gang member Stephen Foskett. Hey, Stephen, thanks for joining. Moving over from Stephen to New York, where by the time we record this, it's still not, it's tomorrow. No, it's not opening day yet, Mike.
It would be Thursday.
Thursday's opening day. Thursday's
3 o'clock
opening day.
Eastern, to be specific.
That was a great video with the backup catcher who used to drive Uber making the team. It kind of got you right here, didn't it? Anyway, he's our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Happy to be here. And yes, half my friends in New York would qualify as people who were born here and never moved.
Me too. I have a lot of friends who grew up in Long Island and will die in Long Island. They haven't even been on vacation out of the United States because, after all, we are the greatest country in the world. Why go anywhere else? Let's not go there today. Joining me here in our studio is our Echo Insights analyst and editor, sustainability, green, author of climate change books, meteorologist, and gal about town, Bonnie Schneider. Hey, Bonnie, how are you?
Great to be here.
Great to have you here. All right, let's dive into things today, guys. So, Mike, A-Block, cloud sticker shock. I don't think it ever went away, but go ahead. You kick it off.
This has been one of those slow-moving crises that everybody kind of saw coming but did nothing about. So now we have a survey from Wasabi talking about how 62% of folks are exceeding the amount of money they allocated for cloud storage. And we are now storing more data than ever in the age of AI. And it looks like a lot of organizations are starting to choke on it. And I just can't quite figure out how much of this is the responsibility of the cloud service providers or how much of this is kind of just bad habits and we don't manage this stuff effectively. Alan, I know you've been kind of looking at this and frankly paying some of these bills yourself. What's your take?
Yeah, no, so look, I've been following this particular issue for years and years and years, to tell you the truth. To me, the poster child of this, and I mean no ill wind or anything to them, was Splunk, right? That was the knock on Splunk. Splunk had an amazing ability to cache and store everything. You tell it what you want. If there was any kind of log or, any kind of data metric, it could store it. But it quickly, it was a poster child for just because you can doesn't mean you should. And the cost of storage for a lot of enterprise Splunk installations gave rise to a whole cottage ecosystem of companies who said, we could store your stuff cheaper than Splunk. Or other companies that said, hey, we'll go through your data in real time and pick out what you really need to store and chuck the rest so you don't have to pay for it. The whole FinOps movement. When you look at people's bills for cloud and stuff, a good chunk of it is storage. Now, couple of things have happened, right? Number one is what I mentioned before. we've come across and said, okay, we don't need to store everything. There are some things maybe you don't want to store. Now that goes against the hoarder in us. And I don't mean hoarder from the Star Trek original series creature that Spock mind melded with. I mean hoarder, Hoarder. You like that, Stephen, right?
I did get the reference.
Yeah, you've got to be
I
a
believe
Star
it's
Trek
pronounced
original.
Horta.
Yeah, that was pronounced Horta. Pain. Anyway, so you don't have to store everything, but people do want to. You never know what you're going to need. Then the other, I think, big sort of feature that came to this space was, well, not all storage is created equal. If it's something that I'm going to pull up frequently, I want it right here, right on my cloud infrastructure, and boom, I'm getting that. If it's stuff I may only pull up once in a while for an audit or something, I could offload that. And if it's something that's even worse than that, heavens forbid, I could go to the tape, assuming those tapes work. Remember all those big machines that would pull the tape out, like the robot arm would pull the tape out and pop it in? Anyway, that was kind of the low level, the cheapest storage. But no matter how you slice and dice it, we are storing everything, right? Your MRI films and CAT scans, they say that within a couple of years, 40% of all the storage on the internet will be medical imaging if we keep this up. Do we need to store all those? Yeah, well, probably. So this is not a new problem. This is another one of these vendors who, put out a survey to get the attention of esteemed journalists in the tech space and highlight an old problem. What's the new solution? There is none. You got to make a decision here. What do you want to store? How do you want to store it? And when budget becomes an issue, you've got to make hard choices.
Stephen, is there hope for us though? Because can we have better, smarter data management? Is there new storage technologies in the world?
Well, like I was, yeah, people are naturally pack rats. I mean, you're talking to the guy whose personal blog is called the Pack Rat Blog, because I am, in fact, a storage nerd. And the sad truth of it is, at least for my entire career, people don't delete stuff. They don't eliminate data. They just store more and more. A few years back, I coined Foskett's law, which is the next storage device you buy is going to be bigger than every storage device you've ever bought, doubled. And that's held true for a long time. Maybe it's not true now, but the truth is people just keep storing more and more. And that has worked to the favor of the cloud storage vendors, because essentially by making it very easy to store more and more, they've made it very easy for people to, they're kind of feeding this this trend of pack ratism in IT that we've been fighting for a long time. But the thing is, now that we've got an infinitely scalable storage system that charges you as you go, maybe you don't notice it until it's too late. It is a little self-serving, I'll point out, for Wasabi to be talking about egress fees, because Wasabi's one of their pitches for their product is their no egress fee policy. Essentially, if I'm reading it right, if you egress less than your volume of storage every month, then you don't have to pay for egress fees, which is a big differentiator for them. It's a big positive for them. I love the aspect of their product, but that being said, to have somebody go out there and say, like, hey, egress fees are the bane of your existence, and that's why you're storing too much, parentheses, we're the company without egress fees, is kind of like, any other company going out there and saying, hey, McDonald's is great, but, don't you want to have, I don't know, a better burger or
Hot
something?
hot and juicy.
It's their pitch, right? I mean, so basically the survey is their pitch.
So to be fair, a lot of the cloud service providers are ratcheting down those egress fees, right? They've heard people and they're getting beat up about that. So I don't know how much of that is the core differentiator going forward. But there is criticism, and I'll toss this down, that says the way the cloud services are priced is misleading, and people don't know what they're getting into because they're showing a base level price, and then they wake up one morning and they're 3/4 of their cloud bill is storage. And so, do we need more transparency?
Didn't we used to have like a consumer protection kind of thing? Oh no, they
Yeah,
got rid of that. They got
yeah,
rid of
but we
that.
don't need that, man. We
We
don't
don't
need
need
that.
that.
That's just standing in the way of business.
We need a corporate protection.
I'll talk to Senator Elizabeth Warren about it. But look, cloud bills are the way they are on purpose. I think they're purposely unduly not transparent, opaque, I guess is the word, and the opposite of transparent. And that's what a lot of these FinOps programs do, is they shine a light on these dark corners of your cloud bill so you could see where your costs are. I'm sure somewhere in the fine print that you just hit accept 6 times on, the cloud providers are giving you what, the pricing is and all of these things, but we don't pay attention. And it's not until, we've grown from, 10 gigabits to all of a sudden, holy mackerel, we're up to petabytes. This is costing me a fortune, that people get freaky.
I just wanted to add something that in the report that I did about sustainability. Storage costs go hand in hand with a lot of sustainability issues, and
Sure.
you mentioned data tiering as well, like with the cold data that you're not using, that helps save energy. But what's interesting is Delphix. It might also spark innovation with Delphix, because they are doing kind of a virtual store, like a virtual replica of your storage, and that's how they can save their customers money, where they're having almost like a storage stand-in for their for the amount that they're storing, and that virtual storage placeholder has made a difference in some of the costs.
Stephen, do you think we could use AI to help us with any of this? Because I would sorely love an AI agent that would send the message that said, you realize that you're storing 97 versions of the same image and that maybe you don't need that.
That's actually that would be a great use of an AI model. Sure. Yeah. And I mean, that's, to your point about FinOps. Absolutely. I mean, the problem is that people tend to fill up whatever space they have. I mean, I'm moving house right now, and we are fairly clean people, and yet we managed to fill up the basement of our giant house with basically garbage that we ended up throwing out when it's time to move. It's the same for storage, data storage. I will point out that deletion is free on every cloud platform, and in fact, pays you back. So, if you're worried about egress, maybe say, do I need this at all? And delete it. But what we really need too is we need help uncovering the storage that we're using, because sometimes it's not obvious. I think I have like 8 AWS accounts, and one of them is charging me 34 cents a month for S3, and I don't know where that data is. I don't know what that data is. The only reason I know that it's even in the cloud is because it costs 34 cents a month. I would very much like an AI to help me locate that 34 cents before I freak out.
Yeah,
Stephen,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Stephen, just one quick question about your move. How many times have you moved that same box now?
The embarrassing thing is we do have, I have many boxes that are labeled from my last move that I haven't opened. And I even have a couple of boxes labeled from 2 moves ago that I haven't opened. And if that's not a perfect metaphor for what we're talking about, I don't know what is.
Yeah. So, we have a rule: if we haven't opened the box or used something in 3 years, 2 to 3 years, get rid of it. Get rid of it. But, there's another, we'll take this to a personal level. Email. I recently, we had the pleasure, and I do emphasize pleasure, of
I've had
going,
that pleasure of the same thing. I know where you're getting.
yeah, of a Google migration here. And it caused me to look at, so my Google account from Techstrong, Media Ops, is probably 12 years old, 13, yeah, 12 years old. And I'm looking back, I still have every piece of saved email from 12 years ago. Like once I hit saved, if I didn't delete it at the time I read it and it went into seen or saved, it's still there. Now, people may say, well, that's a good thing because it's good to have those records. But au contraire, if you speak to attorneys, they will tell you that there's not a lot to be gained by saving older emails like that. Like the law says, I think you got to keep your mail, is it 3 years or something, is
There
good
ain't
practice.
no law that says how long you got to keep your mail.
Well, best practices, they say 3 years or something like that, right? I'm saying if you got like IRS audited or something, you're supposed to have your mail from a certain amount of time.
So in between being a storage consultant, I was a consultant to corporate general counsel on data retention policies. And that was a real eye-opener for a pack rat nerd like me, because what you just said is 100% correct, Alan. When I talked to general counsel and I said, how long should we retain data? Well, their first reaction was delete, delete, delete. Then I explained, well, when it comes to email, you have to understand that you have a copy, but the other person has a copy too. And there's effectively no way to delete that because somebody else has a copy. And they realized that that could be discoverable. And if it was, then, and they didn't have a copy, then they would be kind of up a creek and they would be on, having to ask the other party for a copy of that email. And we explained that with all sorts of digital documents. And it was amazing because these general counsel immediately went from delete, delete, delete to save, save, save. And they basically said, save everything. It was a real eye opener to see once they learned what the technology can and can't do in terms of you can't delete it everywhere, that they just wanted to save everything. And the other thing that they taught me in return was all of these guidelines and rules and laws that we in tech think we know are just a bunch of hooey. There's no law, there's no rule, there's no guideline. I mean, they're all just sort of fuzzy. Like the 7 years, you have to retain your records for 7 years. That comes from the Bible. That's not a law. There's no law that says you have to retain your records for 7 years. There's
It
no law that
depends
says
if it's
the
a
IRS
Jubilee year.
Exactly. What is it? 49 years? I'm supposed to forgive all debts? Well, after 49 years, I want to forgive all storage costs. How about that?
If you've stored something in the cloud for 49 years, you shouldn't pay for it.
Absolutely. They should give me a medal.
Absolutely. All right.
I think we need more efficient storage. That's what I think. This is a technical problem that needs to be solved.
Save all the data. Just save it someplace affordable.
I just want to point out that there are 2 good articles in our notes on this one. Both are Techstrong ITSM. One is about this survey that Mike mentioned. The other one is key strategies for mitigating cloud storage costs that you could check out. Speaking of Techstrong ITSM, though, we have some big news coming this week, right? Gestalt IT. I'll give you all a preview right here if you promise not to tell anyone. Gestalt IT, which Stephen, you've been running for what, 14, 17 years, something like that?
Some number of years since the year began with the numbers 2, 0, and 0.
Yep, that long.
That's a whole other era.
And Techstrong ITSM are actually merging, so you'll have all of the. We're not like Stephen. We're not getting rid of one article. All the articles from all these years will be there and available. Talk about storage, but they're all available. The new site is going to be called Techstrong.it. In deference to its predecessor, Gestalt IT. But it's Techstrong.it. It has ITSM and IT. There'll also be a whole section dedicated to semiconductors and infrastructure. Infrastructure is the game there at Techstrong.it. And if you play that game, do check out the newest addition to Techstrong.
Including cloud storage.
Including cloud storage. And including articles written by a lot of Techstrong gang people. I got to say, I started that website. I am blown away by the quality of the articles that are going up there now that it's part of the Techstrong world. I mean, having John Swartz writing things on there is just incredible. A real journalist. And I also want to say um, the traffic to that website is already doubled since it became part of the Techstrong family. And as soon as it gets rebranded and rolled in with Techstrong ITSM, up and to the right, right? That's what all the Silicon Valley bros say.
But we're not deleting one article. All right. Or a video. Let's take a break. We're going to come back here on Techstrong and talk about networking a little bit. Stephen, well, you weren't there, I don't believe, right?
Yeah, I was there virtually.
All right. You're watching Techstrong, gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
So last week, we were in California for our next networking field day event, which you might have seen on the Techstrong websites. We were pretty excited to bring together a great group of independent delegates, of course, for this event, including some familiar faces from Techstrong Gang and Futurum Group, including Ron Westfall and Tom Hollingsworth and others. Now, that event is always interesting because networking is such a broad topic. We kind of never know what you're going to get. It's like that metaphorical box of chocolates, except in this case, I guess it's a box of wires. The first presentation up at Networking Field Day, though, really blew me away. We had BT, like British Telecom, BT Group, presenting, and they talked all about quantum computing and quantum networking and the development of a quantum WAN that would allow us to communicate over distance with quantum technology. They talked about the rise of quantum computing and how that's going to affect cryptography. It was one of those cases. I don't know if you guys watched Lost, but that one time when they found the videotape in the bunker and the guy looks at the camera and says, "Whoa, I'm going to have to watch that again." He was speaking for me because I was one of the people watching Lost. It's the same thing. So I'm watching this presentation. I'm just like, I need to watch this on slow-mo with subtitles because there's just so much to get here. So that was a real eye-opener. Have you guys heard of this whole idea of quantum networking?
Yeah, no. So that's where like connected particles or whatever. I forgot the term. But if this one turns right, that one will turn left, and that kind of thing. So I read that for sci-fi stuff, Stephen, much like you do, right? We're into that. But here's the thing. When you've got a company like BT talking publicly at an event like a field day event, tech field day event, don't tell me this is 2035 anymore. It's not. I think quantum is coming we already have post-quantum algorithms on the cryptography that are NIST approved and being implemented. Yeah, DigiCert's doing it. I will tell you again, don't tell anyone. I think it's October, mid-October, we are doing Quantum Leap, the first Techstrong virtual event on quantum. I've lined up Niccolo De Masi from, he's chairman of Futurum, but he's also CEO of a quantum company now. Niccolo's going to speak. I've got the Dell CTO for EMEA, who kind of heads a lot of their quantum stuff, speaking. We're looking for more speakers. The page will be up for a call for speakers shortly. I think this is fascinating, and I think this is coming faster than we even thought it was.
Stephen, do you think the networks that we have in place are going to be able to support, well, two things. One is the applications are more latency sensitive than ever out at the edge. And secondarily, we're moving more data over these pipes than ever, especially in the age of AI. And I just wonder, how long will it be before all that legacy gear we have just basically keels over?
Well, we'll see. I mean, the WAN links are just absolutely massive. Again, talking to companies like BT, you learn just how big, how much data throughput they're handling and how much they're looking to expand this stuff. And another topic that we got as well was this whole idea of data sovereignty. That was kind of the second of three big takeaways. And that kind of is related in that, as we've had this global expansion of networking, as we talked about in the last segment, people storing more and more data, we have to start asking ourselves, where are we storing data and how is that affected by the politics, geopolitics of different regions? That all seems to be exacerbated by our current political system as well, where we could be in a situation where companies suddenly are hit by a real data sovereignty wall or crisis.
Agreed. Agreed.
I
It's
kind of look at that topic though, and I go, well, how granular is it going to get? I mean, how long will it be before my local mayor tells me I got to store a copy of the data in my city because, they want to be able to access it? I always look at data sovereignty and I'm like, well, I get that you need legal standing, I guess, for something, but it kind of seems like a silly way of, spending more money on storage.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to fears of the other problem, essentially fears that if you store your data in a certain region, that the local government will figure out a way to get visibility into that, somebody that you don't want. I mean, that's been one of those concerns. Of course, as we learn more and more about what happens in the U.S., I guess that's a concern as well with the spycraft and Snowden and all those sorts of things. We do learn that data sovereignty is maybe a concern even among allies like Europe and the United States.
we're still allies.
Well, you're going there next week. We better be.
Yeah. So there is the access to data issue, right? That in a particular jurisdiction, they can have access to your data. I think there's also the possibility of, and as stupid as it sounds, but this is the world we live in today, where you're going to have tariffs if you're storing your data outside of a given jurisdiction, whether that's the US or EU. You're going to store your data in a red state, you pay a blue state tax. You store your data in a blue state, you pay a red state tax. Don't store your data in Greenland or the Gulf of whatever they're calling it now. So, this is we're living in a pre-World War I nationalistic orgy. And so data sovereignty becomes a much bigger issue than frankly it should be.
And from a technical perspective, you have to figure out how do you store your data in one location or another. And that's what Versa was presenting at.
People are screaming right now going, you had to give them that idea, didn't you, Alan?
Yep.
You had to share it.
Yeah, well, it was in Project 20. Oh, he didn't know about that. I'm sorry.
So
All
the
right.
third topic
Moving
we got
along.
was using AI. You see how nicely I smoothly moved right on by there, Alan? That's me while driving. Drive right on by. Don't look at that car crash.
Trucking.
The third section that I wanted to focus on was using AI to do data management. To Mike's point about data management, network management, all these other things. Selector is putting together AI-based assistance for network management. I have seen the demos. It's pretty amazing what you can do when you are smart about using AI. And they're not just throwing a chat GPT at it. They're using different AI algorithms to actually be useful as managing networks. And, that goes to the point of what I've been hoping for from AI, which is the chatbots are exciting. Generating images of people with sometimes 5 fingers is great. But what about doing something practical with all this? And that's the thing that I love about these solutions that are doing practical, helping the sysadmins, helping the IT staff manage data, to the point of the data sovereignty question and the data storage question. How are we going to figure out all this stuff? Well, maybe AI could help.
Okay.
I think it can. It should. I mean, to a certain extent, like you look at like QoS, right, in networking. That's been a sort of AI. Maybe it's more of a machine learning AI there with, some algorithms and rules. But it should get a hell of a lot better, I would think, right?
Absolutely, I would think so. And we're already seeing some of that. And I want to point out too that, yeah, we live in this world where large language models and this particular flavor of AI is in vogue. That doesn't mean that that's all AI can be. An expert system is AI. A set of rules is AI. And many of those are already what we're doing. When we're talking about QoS and so on, that's AI too. It's just maybe primitive AI or maybe AI that's different. You can't talk to it, but I think that's all valid. And one more thing I want to say before we go, we also did some community sessions with communities, groups that are doing network user groups and getting people together. Anytime we can get people together, I love it. And I love to see what happens there. So, check some of that stuff out. There's actually networking user groups coming, appearing all around the country. So we had a session on that too. And I think that's worth audiences looking into.
Absolutely. All right. Good update from there, Stephen. What's the next field day event?
Well, the next one we've got on our list is actually something that I'm leading. We're going down to Houston, and we're going to get inside look at all the next generation HPE ProLiant compute technologies, everything from their ILO management to liquid cooling to networking. And I mean, the coolest thing that they showed last time I was down there was like the physical engineering of like fans and power and all that kind of stuff. We're going to have a whole day of that, which is so much fun. And then later in April, we've got our AI infrastructure field day, which is going to be a 4-day event. We just confirmed, this is the first time I'm announcing it, we've got Google Cloud doing an entire day of AI infrastructure at AI infrastructure field day. They just signed the paperwork, so I can say that. So it's just going to be a really cool event. Check out techfieldday.com to learn more.
Hey, Stephen, how does somebody become a delegate for one of these events? Because I know a lot of folks are interested.
Well, if you're interested, we're looking for independent technical people. Reach out to me or Tom Hollingsworth or Alistair Cook, or just send an email to info@techfieldday.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
I spoke to some of the HP people when I was up at SUSECON a week or two ago. And, HPE, what did they tell me? They have 4 of the top 10 supercomputers in the world are HPE. And then they run SUSE, by the way. Yeah. I mean, they do an amazing job. And they are all now, liquid cooled and everything else. But yeah, HPE is, we tend to forget them because HP is, in the woodwork. But good stuff. All right, let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back. And Stephen, to your point about AI actually doing something good, AI animal assistance. Bonnie has a feature on this. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Welcome back to the Techstrong gang. Well, we've been talking about AI and innovative uses and also using AI for good. Google has made some interesting announcements in the area of biodiversity that will help preserve ecological systems across the planet, from animals to plants and how they interact. But on the animal side, they're doing some really cool stuff that I wanted to share with everyone, specifically 3 initiatives right around biodiversity. Google is leveraging AI to tackle biodiversity loss. The company recently announced 3 distinct projects focused on conservation and sustainability. First, the Google for Startups Accelerator. AI for Nature and Climate offers technical resources, mentoring, and strategic guidance for young companies driven to protect and restore natural ecosystems. Plus, Google.org has committed $3 million to Brazilian nonprofits to reverse biodiversity decline, stimulate growth, and advance regenerative farming. Tackling biodiversity also requires analyzing thousands of wildlife photos taken by motion sensor cameras, a time-consuming process. But an open-source AI model called SpeciesNet speeds up animal identification. Google now offers this model free to researchers worldwide. Together, these biodiversity initiatives underscore the growing role AI plays in addressing environmental challenges. You know, I didn't realize that there were thousands of these animal trap cameras all over the world. That was really interesting.
Yes.
And to identify this species by AI is going to save researchers so much time and energy. So it'll be really interesting to see where these projects go and what they are working with folks in the rainforest in Brazil to preserve biodiversity as well. And finally, it's always interesting to follow the startup and the startup community. So the ones that are also using AI to advance biodiversity is fascinating. So they have the whole nature category for the Google startup facility.
I love it. I think, look, I think we're just scratching the surface here, because even with all of those animal traps out there, when you talk about, like, let's say underwater or rainforest versus, let's say, Himalayan kind of, there's still, I forgot, I used to track this stuff because I was into it, but I forget how many new species are discovered still to this day every year. Of animals, not just plants, but of animals as well, and species that haven't been seen in 100 years that we thought were extinct, discovered, but at least, some pocket of them somewhere. So I look forward to that. And also this kind of feel good, kind of not human interest, animal interest story, it feeds people saying, hey, we should preserve our biodiversity. We should preserve habitats. I'm not, the idea of resurrecting the woolly mammoth, I have to admit, I'd like to see woolly mammoths or Tasmanian tigers or some of these extinct animals that the dodo bird. But I mean, that's Jurassic Park-ish. I also think we, especially with what's going on climate change wise, we have to do stuff now to preserve so many species that are on the brink because of our own our own initiatives and what we do with fossil fuel and everything else.
Yeah, it's important to track, and it's not just because we want to care about the animals, but a lot of the research that goes into solving diseases and medical issues, that's all related to this. So biodiversity is really important.
Should think about all of the anti-cancer drugs and stuff like that.
One of my favorite things is when they discover some species that they thought was extinct, but is not, and there's like 3 or 4 of them left, but we can actually do something about it.
Exactly.
Well, we hope. But it's the canary in the coal mine, literally, right?
But if you're not even looking in the coal mine, you don't know about the canary. And I think that that's the coolest thing here is from a nerd perspective, from a technical perspective, we do an Edge Field Day event, and one of the things that came out of that was talking about the fact that smartphone technology has led to a proliferation of sensors in IoT, industrial IoT, and these kind of sensors that you're talking about here in the rainforest in Brazil. That wouldn't have been possible if not for people's insatiable appetite for the latest iPhone. And we've developed these incredible sensors, these incredible processors, the ability to run AI at the edge. I mean, Google has their Coral TPU. In fact, we just launched today the next season of Utilizing Tech, which is our podcast. We do a seasonal podcast about a series of topics. This one's focused on AI at the edge, which is exactly what you guys are talking about. Essentially, the incredible potential of doing having advanced sensors and doing AI processing at the edge with low-powered devices. It really is a transformational thing, and it is the antithesis of what we always gripe about with AI. These nuclear-powered mega data centers. Well, there could be nothing different than maybe a solar-powered camera with like an AI processor that's saying, "Hey, I see a giant armadillo down there." By the way, there's one in your video. I see a giant armadillo. Isn't that cool? I've even heard about these things, these sensors being able to identify specific individuals. Like I know which Siberian tiger that one is because I can recognize his stripes. We can do that with AI. We can do that low powered with solar panels, with these sensors, cameras, processors. And none of that would have happened if not for the consumer tech splurge that we've been through in the last decade.
Hey, Bonnie, how many of these discoveries are actually new species, or is it more like we're just realizing that Stephen is a different species than everybody else and we're putting a label on it?
I think it's, yeah, I just know that there's thousands, and the purpose of it, I think finding the new species or rediscovering a species we thought was extinct is almost like a byproduct. I think a lot of the research is into how much climate change is impacting these particular species as they track them year to year, and also the migrations of the species, which is something I've written about. It's fascinating because of climate patterns. We're seeing, for example, up in the Northeast, that lobsters that were once only in certain cold waters are migrating a little bit further south. We're seeing these changes in where different species go because of warmer waters, and I'm sure we're going to see that across forests as well. So it's all connected, and it's an interesting and useful use of AI.
I think those are pronounced lobsters until they move south, and then they're pronounced lobsters.
I think you're right, though, Mike. Homo foskettis.
Yes, I'm the gray
a new
ruffed
subspecies.
Yeah, the gray ruffed lemur here. Yes.
All right, Bonnie, that was a great piece.
Thank you.
You can find all of Bonnie's Echo Insights over on Techstrong.tv. And then Bonnie, next week, you are down in Miami, right?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And speaking of quantum, it's a major track for this conference, Emerge Americas in Miami. I will be there on Thursday interviewing founders and really some interesting folks right on the cutting edge of quantum, AI, and cloud. And I can't wait to get those interviews out there. They will be on Techstrong TV. And next week, I'll show some previews on the Techstrong gang.
Very cool. Emerge Americas has grown up really quickly to be probably the biggest tech-related conference down here in Florida. It's run by Manny
Medina
and his family. Manny, of course, was the founder of Terramark, which got sold, I think, to Verizon for billions. And Manny has invested a lot of that money in the Miami tech ecosystem.
Yes.
And I think it's his daughter.
Yes, Melissa Medina, who I interviewed last year, and she'll be running things again this year. But it's a bigger turnout to watch the growth of it, and also that track of what's popular has really shifted, that quantum is now the most dominant one this year.
Go figure.
Yeah,
quantum
that's what you're talking about.
All right. Hey, this has been a great Techstrong gang. Stephen, Mike, thank you. Bonnie, thank you. Thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed it. As usual, we've got a lot of Techstrong TV immediately following, so stay tuned for that. Next week, Mike and I are out in CubeCon in London, and we'll be reporting from there as well.
We might even have a preview this week. Let's see.
We might, rabbit, as the Elmer used to say. But until then, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong Gang. We're out of here.